Hey, sports card fans, it's John Wade Boggs fan. Hope you're all doing well. I'm back with another top 10 vintage baseball card sales on eBay video. This one for cards from the 1970s and 1980s for January 2026. Now, starting in January, my 3 by-decade videos will now include cards that are graded by SGC and not just PSA. Now, for the 30s and 40s decade top 10 video, there were some SGC slabbed cards that made those top 10 lists, as well as the 50s and 60s. But for January, there were no SGC slabbed card sales that sold high enough to make the two top 10 lists for the 70s and 80s. So we'll see about next month whether any of those cards can crack the top 10. But for now, these are all going to be PSA slabbed cards that made these two top 10 lists. So for January from the 1970s, 3 cards out of the top 10 are from the 1971 top set. And for the 1980s, man, the Tiffany versions of the base top cards continue to really sell well. So let's get to the 2 top 10 lists. Starting off with the top 10 from the 1970s. At number 10, we have this 1979 Topps Gary Carter in a PSA 10. This one sold on January 28th for $3,000. It was an auction. There was one bid. The current VCP average price for PSA 10 is $3,250. The record high sale was $3,500 back in September of last year through eBay. There have been 220 copies graded a PSA 9. Only 13 have been graded a PSA 10. At number 9, we have this 1971 Topps Brooks Robinson in a PSA 8.5. This one sold on January 19th for $3,250. It was a best offer. The current VCP average price for PSA 8.5 is this sale here at $3,250 and represents a new record high sale for a PSA 8.5 copy. The previous high was $2,340 back in November of 2023 through eBay. There have been 11 copies graded an 8.5, 13 have been graded a PSA 9, and none have been graded a PSA 10. At number 8, we have this 1979 Topps Ozzie Smith in a PSA 9. This one sold on January 25th for $3,450. It was a buy it now. The current VCP average price for PSA 9 is $3,261. The record high sale, though, was $15,600 back in August of 2022 through PWCC. There have been 428 copies graded a PSA 9. Only 5 have been graded a PSA 10. Now, there were 2 other significant 1979 Topps Ozzie Smith cards sales in January. Both PSA 9 copies. The first one sold on January 25th for $3,350, and then the other copy sold on January 14th for $3,200. At number 7, we have this 1970 Topps Thurman Munson in a PSA 9. This one sold on January 14th for $3,800. It was a best offer. The current VCP average price for a PSA 9 is $3,250. The record high sale was $6,000 back in June of last year through Fanatics Collect. There have been 88 copies graded a PSA 9. Only 4 have been graded a PSA 10. At number 6, while not a standard card, I thought I would include it as is an interesting item. We have this 1970 Topps Candy Lids Hank Aaron in a PSA 8. This one sold on January 17th for $4,500. It was a best offer. The current VCP average price for a PSA 8 is $1,950. So this sale here at $4,500 represents a new record high sale for a PSA 8 copy. The previous high was $1,950 back in June of 2023 through eBay. Now, there have been 5 copies graded a PSA 8. Only one has been graded a PSA 9, and none have been graded a PSA 10. At number 5, we have this 1973 Topps Nolan Ryan in a PSA 9. This one sold on January 2nd for $4,598. It was an auction. There were 56 bids. The current VCP average price for a PSA 9 is $3,885. The record high sale was $4,758 back in January of this year, but through Heritage. Now, there have been 146 copies graded a PSA 9. Only 6 have been graded a PSA 10. At number 4, we have this 1974 Topps Deco Edge Hank Aaron in a PSA 8. Now, while the PSA slab does not note it, this is the white back variation. This one sold on January 23rd for $5,500. It was a best offer. The current VCP average price for a PSA 8 is $4,042. This sale here at $5,500 represents a new record high sale for a PSA 8 copy. The previous high was $4,042 back in January of 2024 through memory lane. There's only been one copy graded a PSA 8, and there's been a PSA 8 qualifier, but none have been graded higher. At number 3, we have this 1975 Topps Mini George Brett in a PSA 9. This one sold on January 25th for $5,898. It was an auction. There were 40 bids. The current VCP average price for a PSA 9 is $5,695. The record high sale was $7,599 back in October of last year through eBay. There have been 164 copies graded a PSA 9. Only 8 have been graded a PSA 10. At number 2, we have this 1971 Topps Ernie Banks in a PSA 8.5. This one sold on January 16th for $6,500. It was a best offer. Current VCP average price for a PSA 8.5 is this sale here at $6,500 and represents a new record high sale for that grade. The previous high was $838 all the way back in May of 2017 through eBay. There have been 10 copies graded a PSA 8.5. Only 6 have been graded a PSA 9, and only 1 has been graded a PSA 10. And the number 1 sale from the 1970s for January is this 1971 Topps Nolan Ryan, again in a PSA 8.5. This one sold on January 4th for $7,211. It was an auction. There were 39 bids. The current VCP average price for a PSA 8.5 is $10,525. The record high sale was $12,288 back in August of last year through eBay. There have been 27 copies graded a PSA 8.5, 31 have been graded a PSA 9, and none have been graded a PSA 10. All right, on to the top 10 from the 1980s. At number 10, we have the 1989 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. in a PSA 10. This one sold on December 20th for $5,000. It was a buy it now. The current VCP average price for a PSA 10 is $4,316. The record high sale was $6,600 back in February of 2021 through eBay, a PWCC listing on eBay. There have been 34,135 copies graded a PSA 9 and 4,356 copies have been graded a PSA 10. Now, there were at least four other significant 1989 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. sales in January, but I'm showing the next top four. Of course, they are all PSA 10 copies. One sold on January 3rd for $5,000. Another one sold on January 29th for $5,000. Then one on January 25th sold for $4,851. And then a fourth copy here sold on January 3rd for $4,700. At number 9, we have this 1989 Topps Traded Tiffany Ken Griffey Jr. in a PSA 10. This one sold on January 21st for $5,250. It was a best offer. The current VCP average price for a PSA 10 is $5,511. The record high sale, though, was $11,995 back in February of 2021 through a PWCC listing on eBay. There have been 1,570 copies graded a PSA 9, and 345 have been graded a PSA 10. At number 8, we have this 1983 Topps Tony Gwynn in a PSA 10. This one sold on January 8th for $5,601. It was an auction. There were 40 bids. The current VCP average price for a PSA 10 is $5,112. The record high sale was $8,070 back in September of last year through Memory Lane. There have been 6,474 copies graded a PSA 9, and 750 have been graded a PSA 10. Now, there was one other significant 1983 Topps Tony Gwynn sale in January, another PSA 10 copy, sold on January 28th for $5,000. At number 7, we have this 1985 Leaf Roger Clemens in a PSA 10. This one sold on January 3rd for $5,925. It was a best offer. The current VCP average price for a PSA 10 is $6,729, which was the record high sale set in September of last year through eBay. There have been 460 copies graded a PSA 9. Only 49 have been graded a PSA 10. At number 6, we have this 1985 Topps Tiffany Kirby Puckett in a PSA 10. This one sold on January 11th for $7,500. It was a best offer. The current VCP average price for a PSA 10 is $5,852. The sale here at $7,500 represents a new record high sale for a PSA 10 copy. The previous high was $6,838 back in May of last year through Memory Lane. There have been 380 copies graded a PSA 9. Only 53 have been graded a PSA 10. At number 5, we have the 1986 Topps Traded Tiffany Barry Bonds in a PSA 10. This one sold on January 24th for $13,500. It was a best offer. The current VCP average price for a PSA 10 is $12,689. The record high sale, though, was $16,000 back in February of 2021 through eBay. There have been 1,514 copies graded a PSA 9, and 455 have been graded a PSA 10. Now, there were 3 other significant 1986 Topps Traded Tiffany Barry Bonds sales in January. Of course, they're all PSA 10 copies. First one sold on January 25th, again for $12,655. Then a second card, also on January 25th, sold for $12,655. And then this third copy here sold on January 23rd for $11,500. At number 4, we have this 1980 Topps Nolan Ryan in a PSA 10. This one sold on January 11th for $17,750. It was a best offer. The current VCP average price for a PSA 10 is $17,951. The record high sale was $20,130 back in March of last year through Heritage. There have been 947 copies graded a PSA 9. Only 40 have been graded a PSA 10. At number 3, we have this 1985 Topps Tiffany Roger Clemens in a PSA 10. This one sold on January 16th for $18,000. It was a best offer. Current VCP average price for a PSA 10 is $16,401. The record high sale was $22,600 back in March of 2021 through a PWCC listing on eBay. There have been 704 copies graded a PSA 9. Only 49 have been graded a PSA 10. At number 2, we have this 1989 Bowman Tiffany Ken Griffey Jr. in a PSA 10. This one sold on January 31st for $19,000. It was a best offer. The current VCP average price for a PSA 10 is $12,880. The record high sale was $23,800 back in February of 2021 through a PWCC listing on eBay. There have been 521 copies graded a PSA 9. 159 have been graded a PSA 10. And the number one sale from the 1980s for January is this 1983 O-Pee-Chee Tony Gwynn in a PSA 10. This one sold on January 27th for $27,000. It was a best offer. The current VCP average price for a PSA 10 is $26,990. This sale here at $27,000 is a new record high sale for a PSA 10 copy. The previous high was $26,990 back in March of last year through eBay. There have been 356 copies graded a PSA 9. Only 36 have been graded a PSA 10. There you have it, the top 10 vintage baseball card sales on eBay for cards from the 1970s and 1980s for January 2026. As always, would love to know in the comments what you think about the cards that made the 2 top 10 lists. And with that, that's all I have for you. So until next time, thanks for watching.